I just got out of the Army and came back to Oklahoma. Uh, Found it was a very different experience being in a very regimented environment in the Army. Just the views that were taught, the interdisciplinary studies uh, with art, music, literature, uh, I think it gave me a well-rounded education. And during my life, the last 40 years, uh, I see artwork in different places and say, wow, I know what that is. Um, People will talk to me and they'll say, oh, I went to school there. And it's just a community. After 40 years, we come back and see the same people and share our experiences in life. So it's been a wonderful experience. I'm hoping that this will continue for a long time. Thank you.
In the reunion in 2010, it was our second OCLA reunion. We had had one in 2008, and we had a reunion in 2010. And at that time, we had a steering committee of 12 people. And one of the decisions that was made, perhaps to be the lasting legacy of our group, was to create the OCLA Scholarship. And the creation of the OCLA Scholarship was in the thinking of our curriculums that we had at OCLA, and particularly the fine arts and the social sciences. And we were hoping to endow the scholarship at that time, which we did, and to add to it over the years so that many more future students could benefit, because most of us sitting here were scholarship recipients, and we benefited greatly from that assistance when we started here. And also, I think, our great love for the institution. So I'll pass it along. I'll start, I guess, with Debi, because Debi was involved in the development of it as well. All of us were.
And I think it goes further than that. All of us kind of have a heart for education and for the future, and we've invested in not only the college but the youth of this area. David's a teacher, I was a teacher, Eugene's been a teacher, Kay's worked at a university. So it was always important for us to keep that spark of learning alive. And we also have this great, not only the great love for the college, but the camaraderie and the love we had for each other. We had those years where we were so close. Someone asked the other day, how come there's so many people right in this era, like 70, 71? We had a bond, and we would like to see the other people in this university with the fine arts curriculum and the smallness of the campus have that same kind of bond and love that we had. So we want it to continue.
I also believe it's a chance to give back. We've reaped the benefits of the university, and it's time to give back to them and to share it with other students. And hopefully, when they, during their career or after their career, feel the same way and want to give back and just keep passing it on.
Yeah, it was the liberal arts curriculum that encouraged me to come here in the first instance. The fact that I had a scholarship kind of added to it as well, but the idea of combining and incorporating art with literature, with science, with math, with music, with politics. I mean, it was just an amazing amalgam without losing any of the academic rigor. We still learned a great deal about a lot of other areas that we would never have known about had we gone through a traditional college. So as each of them in one way or another has said, it's a way that we can help to give back and keep alive the idea of an interdisciplinary curriculum that is focused on the liberal arts now and into the future.
I think our education was so fully intertwined. We benefited. I think that's the strength of the friendships we have today, is because we all experienced this together. We truly developed here. We came here, I'm not sure I knew what to expect when I came here, but when I left, I felt like I was equipped to take on the world. So I think that that bond that we have is testimony to the fact that we had a good thing here, and we want to perpetuate that.
You know, the other thing too is we crossed interdisciplinary studies, but we also crossed majors. I was an education speech path major, but I spent a lot of time in the music department or with Kay and Eugene on Model United Nations tour. You weren't blocked in because we had a broader knowledge and a broader understanding of everybody else's degree. So we all went together, and we weren't locked into our own little, we were the exploding square. We weren't the little box, you know, because we crossed an adventure. It was really an adventure.
It was an adventure, and I think that when I consider the time that OCLA was actually operative, I kind of consider 1968 to 71 the golden era of it, and particularly under the leadership of Dr. Martin, who became, as we have said before, our North Star. He was our leader, but we had such a wonderful faculty. I think anyone here will tell you they revere the faculty that taught us, helping us and a phone call away, and it's amazing because the bond between the student and the faculty, we made it together. We took this journey together, and it was unfolding as we took it. There was an outline, I think. But the game plan, step by step, wasn't really there. We were part of that game plan. But we loved it. We wanted to be part of that game plan. And because of that, like we said, we like that good feeling. We'd like to see it continue. We know in the interdisciplinary studies area here at USAO, that has continued. And that's good, because that was one of the hallmarks, I think, of OCLA.
Yeah, it's a small college today. It was a small college then. Probably a majority of the students actually commuted to campus, but I think all of us at one time or another lived on campus, and that helped, I think, with the bonding as well. Because it was a small college and the majority of our professors had terminal degrees. I mean, the number of PhDs that taught here were pretty astounding for the period of time. Most of our classes were small. I mean, the large contemporary man classes might have 100, 150 students in them, but most of our classes had 10 to 12 to 15 students in them, if that many. And so the kind of individual attention that we received, the opportunities to engage each of these professors in deep conversations and reading some of the materials that we were given that we had to read before the next discussion group. Yes, among other things. It really gave you an opportunity to get into the meat of the matter. And you know, it was never a matter of just skimming the surface. You always felt like you were taking the deep plunge. But that's the reason why we wanted this scholarship. We wanted to be able to carry on the torch, if you will, of learning, and hope that future students who might not otherwise have the opportunity to come to a college like this can, and we can help to maintain the existence of a small college, and yet there are those who love it.
Model UN, the first one I attended was in St. Louis at the Sheraton Jefferson Hotel, and it was amazing. I think the thing I remember the most, besides all the delegates from all across the nation, were the elevator parties. We would commandeer the elevators, and the more knowing older delegates would have alcoholic adult beverages, and we would just stay and ride up and down in the elevators, sharing drinks.
I remember particularly St. Louis was kind of our mothership as far as Model United Nations. We also went to a Model UN in Bloomington, Illinois at IU. Bloomington, Indiana at IU. But the funny thing was, Oklahoma College of Liberal Arts hadn't not had that name for very long. And they would say, well, where are you from? Because now Midwest is a big organization in St. Louis. And we'd say OCLA, and they would invariably say UCLA, and we'd say, no, we're smaller and much better. But we weren't well known at that point, but we became well known because particularly we were given a lot of encouragement, and and really OCLA was very much behind us in promoting us to take positions in the secretariats of these other organizations, which we did. And we met people from everywhere and developed all these contacts with universities all across the country. And it put us on the map, really, because we were known through United Nations, through what was called SARUNA, the Council for International Relations and United Nation Affairs. We were known through SARUNA. We were known through Model UN. And so we did UNICEF, and it actually gave us kind of a national presence. But I always loved the fact that we were OCLA, just smaller and better. But Eugene has a lot to offer here about Model UN.
Well, mine will be a little more academic. I won't say dignified, but academic. We had two major sponsors during that period of time, Teresa Rose Ramirez and Dr. Irene Mitchell. They were sponsors of our Model United Nations experiences. We went to the Model United Nations of the Southwest, which is at the University of Oklahoma, in addition to Midwest Model UN and St. Louis, and then I forgot now what the name was, in Indiana. But in any event, each of the Model UNs usually adopted 8 resolutions during the period of time when we met. It's usually a 3-day conference. And what I remember about the one in Indiana, because it was the only time we ever went there, but we were probably the farthest college away who came to that Model UN. Most of them were colleges in the area of Indiana. And 3 of the 8 resolutions we had authored. And so we always took that as kind of a badge of honor that if we hadn't been there, can you imagine what kind of resolutions they would have adopted? But
They would have had fun.
that's possibly.
Far less studious.
But one of the other things about this college that added so much, I think, was the fact that we had the trimester system, and we had a 5-week independent study program, which was usually from late April to the first part of June. One year we did an independent study of the United Nations and how to put together a Model UN, since we had been to a number of them. So we then, at that point, organized the OCLA Model United Nations for high school students. And we had, I've forgotten now, probably in the neighborhood of 100 students. We did. From throughout Oklahoma, but also we had students here from Texas and Kansas, I remember, that brought delegations, high school kids, and we put them up in the dorms. But we had a grand time. Well, I wasn't going to go there. But Gene Davidson was the first Secretary General. I was the first president of the General Assembly, and then the following year, you were the Secretary General, and I again repeated as president of the General Assembly. Then I graduated, and but it kept going for a number of years. Reaction in the community almost immediately, and after that, they brought in the charge d'affaires from Israel out of Houston to come and speak on campus, because we can't have just one side of the issue presented. Well, we weren't presenting a side of the issue. We were talking about Model United Nations. But that little bit of a flurry was it was a really instructive learning experience for us.
I have to comment just a moment on Teresa Rose Ramirez. And if it were not for her determination, this wouldn't have happened. Although Dr. Mitchell was way behind us, and I loved Dr. Mitchell, TR was the driving force. And I remember it was a commitment for OCLA with limited budgets to send us to St. Louis and to Bloomington and wherever. So we were out there trying to get as much recognition for us as possible. But I remember when I knew that I was going to be selected as Secretary General, which was a real honor, that I lobbied and was successful in convincing them that John Bivens, who is no longer with us, whom we lovingly called Big John, should be president of the Security Council. And I remember going to TR and saying, I've got it, and I've got Big John in too. And I don't think I've ever seen her look so happy, because there was a lot riding on her to bring back some kind of recognition. And I remember she was excited. She couldn't believe, she was happy for me, but she was really glad that politically I had managed to get Big John in there. But that was the kind of thing that was so important, because we didn't have big budgets and we didn't have a lot of money. We had a lot of vibe and verve and moxie and whatever you call it, because we were 18 and 19, 20 years old. And we were learning it as we went along. No one schooled us in the art of diplomacy. We had to learn it as we went along. But I think those were years of great, great achievement and left a mark. And like you said, I'm sorry that they no longer do that, because it's a tremendous learning experience. But in essence, it was great to bring that home for our faculty too, because we wanted to support them as they had supported us.
Yeah, a number of my former students who had been here as part of the Model UN later came here as students. And I think that was a great recruiting tool, and that's one of the reasons why the university supported us as they did for many, many years.
I think the activities that you spoke about, Eugene, about all the different turmoil with the Jordanians and the Israelis, I think that more or less began the crumbling of OCLA, Oklahoma College of Liberal Arts. It just politically didn't fly in this area, and they wanted to get that word liberal out of the school's name. They may still be liberal, but they did not want it to be actually called liberal arts. And that was a mistake.
I just have one thing to say. If TR does watch this, I think we all need to say we love you, TR.
Oh, yeah.
Say,
Thank
1,
you,
2, 3.
We
love
love
you,
you,
TR.
She was my mentor.
Many mentors.
Yes.
Suffice to say that the fact we're all sitting here today, many moons later, as enthusiastic as we were then, I think tells the whole story.
Probably my most notable thing was the president of Kappa Chi, which always kind of reminded me of what Groucho Marx said. I'm not sure I'd want to be a member of any organization that would have me as a member. But we had a lot of fun. We did a little bit of public service. Pretty much the emphasis was on the fun and social interaction, and we've got lifetime friendships out of it. In fact, my little brother Ron is sitting over here.
Yes, as said, Ron Sullivan, and I pledged Kappa Chi in 1970, and it was probably one of the best things that I did, because that gave me a sense of belonging, a sense of family. I became part of something that was bigger than myself. We did have a lot of fun, but there was a brotherhood. We became very, very close. We would take each other home on weekends, especially we had a young man from Syracuse, New York, and he couldn't go home on weekends, so we'd take Bill with us, and Bill Stover, yes, we'd take him, and it was, like I said, it was great because we were family. We definitely were. And I did also serve as the president of Kappa Chi, but I think it was because it seems like at the end of most of the parties, I was the one sober enough to make sure everybody else got home okay.
Well, I pledged in 1969, EMHIM High, and made some of the best friends, lifetime friends, matron of honor at my wedding, still friends. Our kids are more like our grandkids. Again, our big sisters in M High looked out for us. I was the most bashful person on earth, and they took care of me, and they showed me the way and made sure I knew where to go, when to be there, and it made life so much easier here.
David's Kappa Chi. Well, I call her Kelly. She's Debi. But, and with Sherry, we were Baysitas, and we, as others, We were locals, originated as local colonies of national sororities, and we all have a heritage. And when we were here, there were 5 active women's social clubs and the 3 men's. And certainly we have Kappa Chi well represented here. But there was a question about the viability of social clubs in the new environment of Oklahoma College for Liberal Arts, and probably certainly the lasting significance, as Betty has said, the friendships and the ongoing relationships between people has been a real positive. We had lots of people. I think at one point we probably had at least 25% of the student body involved in some kind of social club. I ran some numbers. But these clubs were helpful, especially for people who lived on campus, because we didn't go home every weekend, and we had opportunities for activities and fundraisers and things like that. But it was a very, very positive kind of thing for us. I think we, again, benefited greatly from it. So, Kelly?
When I think of OCLA and my time here, all the fun stuff, all of the great times we sit and laugh about were with our sorority sisters, our social club sisters. And some of the Basitas, we even got together a few years ago in Destin and sat and laughed and played cards and talked about old times. It's that bond that you make for a lifetime. You know, you have your high school friends or friends, but when you get to college and you have a sisterhood, there's a bond that just lasts forever. It just doesn't go away, and it's just good times. And we did do community service. We tried to give back to this community some. We always had fundraisers and community service, and then we always just had a really good time. A really good time.
Betty?
And with everything considered that we went through and learned together and grew, being the most bashful person on campus, I ended up lobbying our state legislature, the Senate and the House, going toe-to-toe, person to person with these people. It's an experience that I would not have taken on unless I had gone to school here and learned how to organize and approach and analyze and take on a subject until I got the conclusion that was needed. And that's the kind of citizen this university formed.
Yeah, I think probably one of the strong points that should be pointed out with liberal arts education is you're just not shoehorned into a narrow perspective of things, but with, especially here, with some of the classes and things that they offered us and how our horizons were broadened. We began to think outside the box. We didn't always accept, traditional answers. We began to push for new answers. I was a speech and drama major, and in southeastern Oklahoma, you don't get a whole lot of call for people with speech and drama degrees. But because of the liberal arts background, I spent 28 years as a social worker, giving back to the communities, and that was always something we did here at school. In many, many ways, was try to give back, and it just seems like the friendships we forged were also steeped in some wonderful traditions of giving back and exploring and expanding. Yep. Oh, and by the way, let me introduce the lovely Sherry Lacy McClintock. Here 40 years ago, we were engaged to get married, and due to a strange twist of fate, we both went our different directions, and another strange twist of fate has brought us back together, and we're going to get married.
Sometime. I actually grew up on campus here. I didn't have the friendships that I developed when I came here, and some of my very dearest friends came from this campus, and we've stayed in contact over the years. And I also, with the liberal arts education, I had a whole career in graphic design. It lasted almost 20 years, and then I completely flipped and went into technical areas. So I had a very nice, well-rounded education, and I appreciate OCLA for that.
Well, I too used my degree in quite a few different capacities. I spent 36 years at ODOT. I was started as a graphic artist, became an info rep, worked kind of in that line for 12 years, and then ran most of the support services for ODOT. And then my last 12 years, we built a statewide radio communication system with about 100 towers and 3,000 pieces of mobile equipment. And everything I did was fun and challenging, and what I did here laid the basis for me being able to do that.